Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are here to celebrate the women of ZeOmega. Actually, every day is a good day to celebrate our amazing women in our lives, but International Women's Day gives us just the opportunity or the reason to do that. Today, let me just go ahead and introduce our panelists for today's discussion, the amazing, wonderful ZeOmega women leaders, Sandra Hewitt, Chief Nursing Officer, Tricia Swift, the Vice President of Innovation Transformation, Kathy Krawczyk, Vice President, Clinical Support Services, and Suma Talia, Director, Product Application Engineering. Before we go further, let me introduce myself, everyone. Most of the people have met me or have had interactions with me, but for those who haven't, my name is Akanksha Pandey, and I work in ZeOmega as Business Analyst 1. And I'm really glad that I have the opportunity and the good fortune of working with such amazing people, such amazing folks who have helped me in every way and in every walks. This is our small agenda for today's discussion. And I would just give everyone a couple of minutes to brief through this agenda of what we're trying to achieve today. Okay, without any further delays, let me just dive into today's panel discussion. The first question that we have here is, can you name a person who had an impact on you as a leader, and how did they impact your life? It's over to you, Sandra.
Well, good morning, and thanks to everybody in our organization for arranging this. So really the quote that I've aspired to is by Sir Winston Churchill, never was so much owed by so many to so few. It happened during World War II, but it's a very important figure in my history. So growing up in England, I had a very traditional upbringing and was always reminded that duty before others, before self, duty for others before self. So when I moved to America, the cultural changes for me were really enormous, and I was quite lost. So my mom always told me to make my own path. I could do anything that I put my mind to. So early in my working life, the person who most influenced me was like my second boss. I was working as a secretary at AT&T, and he was this curmudgeonly old man in his 40s. I laugh now because I'm way past that. But the best thing he taught me was trust only in what you learn, not what others tell you. I've taken that lesson along with service to others to heart in like all my jobs, and I've really been blessed with many opportunities. So really for me, learning, researching, doing my own thinking was the best thing he ever could do to me. I didn't really realize it at the time, but he has stuck with me and he served me well.
Great. Am I next?
Yes, Tricia.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Tricia Swift. I don't know if I can follow up with Sir Winston Churchill, but I did watch The Crown, and I just loved his character in that series. So that's my antidote to Sandra's response there. So I have a lot of women and men that have influenced me throughout my career and life. I would be in error if I didn't first and foremost mention my mother. She's been the strongest influence in my life, both as a child, as an adult. She's my very best friend. But for this question, I'm going to highlight my great auntie, my grandmother's older sister. And she is a Mississippi born and raised woman who is loud and vibrant and has a lot of wisdom to share. So when I was a small child, I developed a pen pal relationship with her. And of course, it was just a great honor for me to do that. And I always had to respond, otherwise I'd get in trouble from my mom. But her letters didn't always make sense to me when I was a small girl. She would write to me about feeding her chickens or planting a garden, and what it meant to sow her seeds. And I just remember reading these letters and couldn't connect when I was 8 or 9 or 10 years old. But I kept them in this really nice box, and I would pull them out and I would read them just leisurely throughout my life. I still have that box with all her letters. And now that I'm older, I realize that in those letters, she was teaching me a lesson about life, and she was using her experience to teach me that lesson. So one letter in particular that stays on the top of that pile that I really enjoy rereading is this note where she's talking to me about planting her garden, which she had a huge one, and telling me how important it was to sow the seeds in a straight and narrow line. And not just plant one seed, but plant many seeds, because some of them might not take in the soil and might not grow. And that if she didn't plant enough seeds, she might only get one bowl of vegetables, and she wanted a full harvest of vegetables. And the whole theme of that note that I'm going to put in a frame now that I've reflected on this question is, it's not about the harvest you get, it's about the seeds that you plant. And she was really trying to teach me that it's about the effort you put into life and the things that you prepare for that are most important, not the benefit or the harvest that's going to come to you after you plant those seeds. And I'm just so thankful for having those lessons. And I actually need to open that box and read more of her letters, because I bet there's just little pearls of wisdom within it. But I've just admired, her name is Emma Doris, so I called her Great Auntie Emma Doris. I've just admired her my whole life, and I feel so fortunate to have that pen pal relationship with her. But now I can just pick up the phone and get some of that really good, wise, balanced advice today. So that's who I want to highlight today. And thank you for the question. This was a really good one.
Thank you, Tricia. Over to you, Kathy.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. When I read this question, looked at it from my perspective of, I've met many women and men in my life who I have found have helped evolve me to be me. As children, we're raised by our family, by our culture, by our genetics, and we become these unique individuals that over time begin to develop and grow as we go through adulthood. But it was in one of my jobs that I came across my boss's boss. Her name was Wendy Bottomley, who just awed me as a woman, as a leader, and her trickle-down effect to the people who served under her had trickle-down effect to us within the organization. So she was a vice president of medical services who consumed our health plans. And because of that, sort of all of the organization reported up to her through her. But what happened to me was the minute I met her, I was in awe. And I think to me that was very startling, that someone could impact me at that first meeting. And what was amazing about her was her physical presence, the way she spoke, the way she treated people. And she was an executive among a all-male executive staff. And to watch her work and speak just caught my eye. And that is one person that I could say professionally that I've come across that I truly looked at her as a role model. She was the type of woman where nothing was beneath her. So she actually, true story, she actually one day came to my office, sat down in my office, and taught me the new software that we were going to be adopting at our health plan. And I was astounded by that. How can an executive know how to put an auth in the system? But she did. And as I worked with her, every single thing she did, she had a knowledge of everything within that organization. And I was just astounded. So it was one of those, not do as I say, but do as I do. And she was the epitome of a role model. She knew when to be soft. She knew when to be hard. Interestingly enough, she's ex-military. And I often thought, if that played into it, where was this delicate balance of being a strong woman in a man world and being able to just effortlessly lead herself and the women and the men underneath her. And there was not one person that I came across in that organization who didn't have respect for her, who wasn't in the same place I was of, wow, she's really amazing. How does she do that? What happened in her life that built her to be that way? And that to me is what I aspire to, is to sort of have that delicate balance of strength and softness and empathy and smarts. Just what she knew was amazing. And so even today, when I think about her, I still have that starstruck, wow, when I grow up, that's what I want to be. I want to be Wendy. And I was lucky to come across her. She taught me many things of how to handle myself, how to not react, but how to respond. And so just watching her and being able to work with her was truly a blessing. That's my story.
That's a great story, Kathy.
Hello everyone, this is Suma. Good morning and good evening. So from my perspective, I have come across many people, different people throughout my career and in my personal life. And each one, when I work with each one, they have their own way of handling things, which have helped me to shape up my career or to do things in a better way. Right from my teacher and parents at home and different managers that I work with, they all helped me to become what I am today. And another perspective to add here, instead of looking at a model to follow, I believe people who challenges us in life will actually make us to go beyond our threshold or beyond our comfortable zone. I do come across many such challenges right from my childhood and accepted those challenges and overcome those. And I believe when we work on these situations, it makes us to achieve something more than what we think that we are capable of. So that is what I wanted to mention here.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your experiences, for your lovely answers. Moving on to the next question that we have in our panel discussion. Do you think women have to deal with misperceptions about their ability to lead? If so, how do you think they should combat it? Or if you face that, how did you combat that? Over to you, Sandra.
Another great question. I think there are misconceptions. Perhaps when I was really starting out in my career, that might have been the case. You do have to prove yourself. But actually, nursing is a really fantastic career because you have to lead with your patients. You have to be calm. You have to be confident. Even if you're not in a technical leadership role. I think most of us look to their family as their first leadership experience. So my mom, again, I wish she was here because I want to talk to her every day, but her, now I look back on things, she was the greatest leader. She was a cheerleader. She took care of the family. My dad was away a lot. So packing up the family almost every year, because we pretty much moved every year being in the military. And she still had time for, participating in women's organizations and things like that. But as far as misconceptions, everywhere you go, every job that you have, every piece of, career move you make, there are going to be people who are the naysayers. There are people who aren't going to perceive you as a strong leader. And so in my opinion, it's not really worth stating what your worth is or what your leadership abilities are. Actions speak louder than words. I believe that in some male-dominated careers and organizations, women do have a harder time, but strong principles and your field, you can make an impact. And other strong leaders will really recognize that and reward you. I've always sought mentors both inside and outside of the workplace, and I've been fortunate, but I've also been unfortunate too. I've had some really bad bosses, and I've taken those lessons to heart in terms of, this is what I never, ever want to be. But I've also had some really good bosses. And so I think that, trusting yourself and, standing up for what you think is right, being there for everybody. I really like what Kelly said about, her mentor or who had the most impact with her, because, for me, that's the same thing. Never ask anybody that you lead to do something that you can't do yourself, but always be proud of the fact that, people who work for you do know more than you, and don't be afraid of that. So I think that always look to people to give you advice and be a servant leader. I mean, being a leader isn't being out there in charge and telling people what to do and what have you. It is about listening and recognizing the strengths in your team. So those starting out in their careers, I think, really look at people you want to emulate, people that you don't want to emulate, and use that. And if you stick to your principles, any misperceptions about your ability to lead should go away. And honestly, if you feel that you are doing the right thing, then continue down that pathway. Don't let anybody tell you differently.
Thank you, Sandra.
Okay. Yes, that's my answer to this question. I do think women deal with unique misperceptions about their ability to lead. And there's a ton of research on this topic. If you haven't just done a Google search about the research in this area, I highly encourage you to do that. And these, panel discussions are great, and, personal opinions are great, but there's been a lot of really well-funded research on this. So we actually have data to back up this topic. So Oliver Wyman actually put out a great report. I want to say it was in February. It could have been January. And they researched this exact topic and a few others. It's a pretty long report. It's about 50 pages. But the two things that sort of stuck out to me from that research about how women are misperceived and why that is, despite all the progress that we've made, two things really stuck out. So the first thing is that leadership looks different from a man's view than a woman's view, and that's not wrong or right. It's just different. But when you're in an environment where leadership ability is evaluated by men more so than women, that's where those different perceptions really come into play. So if you take a look at what the research says about how men look at what does a strong leader look like, the top 3 traits that come up are being direct, being decisive, and being confident. When you ask women the same question, what are the top 3 leadership traits that people should have to be successful? Women talk about empowering your team, being collaborative, and then finally being confident. So this kind of goes to what Sandra was just saying of not taking credit, not being hesitant to do things that you're asking your team to do. This is much more collaborative, team-based model, and that's very much how women view leadership, is empowering others, being influential. And that's not to say those traits aren't important to men either. It's just in general terms, when you ask men and women what they think, those are the attributes and traits that come to mind. So in combating that, I think, it's important to have a broad definition of leadership and to know when those important moments are in your career where you might need to demonstrate traits and characteristics that are not natural feeling to you. And I say that for men and women. So if you're a male leader and your default style is being very direct and making decisions and making swift, strong decisions, and that's your style, and you've been really successful at that, there might be times where it's more important and more valuable for you to advance your career to demonstrate collaboration and to give credit away and to empower your team. Likewise, it might be a very important sort of meeting or project or initiative that you're leading as a woman, and you might need to make a decision that you'd rather have a more collaborative decision process for that particular one. But if you're in the spotlight and you're being evaluated, I think it's just important to understand how different people might look at what effective leadership is supposed to look like, and know when to take on different traits, whether it be masculine or feminine traits, know when to sort of adopt those and be comfortable having a broader definition. So that's one thing. The other thing that really stuck out to me in the research is this idea that a lot of women have when they're trying to move up the ladder, be promoted, or land a leadership position. And that's this idea that you assume your results speak for themselves, that your hard work will just be evident to everybody and will pay off. Somebody will notice and give you what you've worked for. And in corporate world and in the executive circles, that's not always true. And the research shows that a lot of women are passed over for leadership roles because they hold this assumption. I've worked hard for a long time. All the work that I do is high quality, and someone will notice sooner or later. And that's just not how the world usually works. So the way to combat that is to take moments to demonstrate the work that you've done, and you might have to do that in a different way rather than assuming it's going to be noticed without any effort on your own, but also not ignoring the trust factor, the likability factor in being placed into leadership roles. Usually you're placed into roles to lead other people because people trust you and they like you and you do a good job. And so it's a full scope of characteristics that you have to demonstrate. So we can't always just keep our nose down and work really hard. We do have to put effort in to building trust and building likability and making sure people see you for you, see you in vulnerable moments, understand what you're like as a person, so they have a comprehensive view of your ability to lead. So those are my 2 points.
Thank you, Tricia. That was really helpful. Kathy, please share your views as well.
Thank you. Yes, Tricia, that was very good. So the answer to the question is yes. I do believe there is a misperception about women and their ability to lead. I think, one, you sort of have to look at who people are, where they've come from, what has happened to them in their past life to bring them to who they are today. I think perception is a lot of, one, upbringing, how you were raised, how you think, and an evolution of growth. So people who didn't grow get stuck in this misperception, ideations of how they label people. And over time, as you grow as a human, you begin to change your lens, right? So you're able to look at the world a little bit differently. The hard lesson in life that I learned was you cannot change other people. You can only control yourself. You can't control other people. I can control my reaction to something. So when I look at people who make an assumption about me based off of a snapshot of me, it may have been a positive moment or it may have been a negative moment. We're human. It's as simple as that. We're going to have good days. We're going to have bad days. All we continue to do as leaders is learn and continue to move forward, learn from our mistakes, learn what worked, what didn't work. But when I am facing labels, all I can do is think about who is the person I'm dealing with, what is their misperception, and is there something within my tool belt that can change their misperception about me? But one of the things that's crucial is that you have to be true to who you are. And Tricia made some really valid, wonderful points. When you think about who and what is a leader, yes, genders sort of have changed or different ideas about what that means, but leaders lead by example. Nobody follows people who say one thing but do another. And so leaders need to be strong. They need to have vision. They need to have transparency. So back to Tricia's comment about trust. Nobody's going to blindly follow somebody without a sense of security, that they trust this person, that this person is aligning up to their own ideas and belief. And so this ability to lead is about having a vision of where you want to lead people to and how you're going to get there, and the team or the underlayment that's required for you to get there. So people having misconceptions about me, first of all, personally, is always upsetting. I think you always heard that term, it's just business, it's not personal. And I always think, well, it's personal to me. So there's this moment where I feel that I've been put in a bad light, or I am put in a bad light because of something I've done or have not done. And the first thing that I always do is I step away from it to try to remove the emotion, to really look at what happened. Is it true? Isn't it true? Could I have said it better, done it better? Or no, I did it right. That essentially that my intention was true and correct. It was just their perception that was a little bit different. And you really can't force people to believe you. You can't force people to have ideas of yourself that they just aren't willing to take. So for me, I stand true to who I am, what I'm doing. And leadership is about a mix of personality and skill and knowledge and confidence. People don't believe people who aren't confident. So to lead, you have to have a skill set. And then you have to know how to react or not react when things start to go maybe a little bit bad and people have this perception that just isn't true. And so all you can do to really overcome that is to make sure that maybe you did it right or maybe you did it wrong. And as long as you do that introspective evaluation of yourself, then, and from the outcome of that grow or change or evolve, then that's how you combat it. Because I'm not going to be 9 different personalities depending on who I'm dealing with. I'm always going to be me, and I'm going to try to be the best of me based on weighing the positive and the negative that have affected me through life. But it is very difficult as a woman sometimes to deal with in a man's world. I've been there, and some of it was negative, and I walked away from lessons learned from that. Did it affect me? Didn't affect me? How I could have done better or not better. And then once I came to my overall conclusion, I moved forward. I don't let things negatively keep me down. I read a quote once, and I won't be able to get it right because it, didn't write it down. But I read it where it talked about boats float because they don't let water come in and sink them. So why do boats sink? It's because you allowed the water to come inside you. And that was one of those, ooh, moments. And I thought, yeah, you're right. If I don't let the negative fill me up, I won't sink. And so that's how I combat it, is I look at what's the positive even out of that negative interaction that I've had. What can I glean or pull out of it to make me smarter and stronger and better, professionally and personally? I really believe we are holistically one. We are career and we are personal. And I think on women, it's even a bigger challenge because we want careers, but we're mothers and we're wives and we're sisters and we're daughters and we're grandmothers and we're all of this big bundle, and you can't pull pieces out and behave differently based on who you are. You are who you are. And this beautiful blend of all these roles is what makes you spectacular as a woman. It makes you spectacular as a professional. And so you have to keep focusing on that positive, because otherwise you let that negative come in and sink you. You can't aspire to where you want to grow and be.
Thank you, Kathy. That was really great. Suma, will you please share yours view?
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. That was a good explanation on how to combat and come up. So I answer to this question, yes, I do agree. There is a misperception on whether a woman can become a leader or not. But on the other hand, I do believe that men and women both have the same ability. As long as they have the required skill set to demonstrate, and it is the first time that they demonstrate and show the results. That is how you get the confidence and also you win the trust that somebody can decide that this person can take up the leadership role and they can demonstrate. And end of the day, that leader is a person who enables the team. As Tricia mentioned, that leader is the person who empowers the team. So I believe in that leadership style where you have to empower the team and you have to involve the team in achieving a goal. So the leader has to be part of the team. So the gender does not matter here. However, many people, or men and women both, they may think that they may not be comfortable with reporting to a man versus woman. But I do believe in, as long as we focus on the task, and as long as as a leader, we demonstrate that we guide the team at the points where they need help, and we give them the confidence that we can help them, and we are part of the team, and they look up to us as a leader and come back to us. That will come as a success as a team. And also, I would like to, share my experience when I started with my career, and when I switched over to the managerial role. I too had what you call as a peer pressure, where comparing or assuming that maybe a person with the same role may demonstrate or may dedicate more than what I could have done. So being a woman, you own other responsibilities, like in your personal life, like you are a wife, you are a daughter, you are a mother, you are a daughter-in-law. So a lot of other responsibilities also are there. So whether can I compete, can I deliver same as another person in the same role can deliver, those thoughts were often coming to me when I started switched into the managerial role. But what I feel that has helped me, or help a person to overcome this, is number one, confidence. It is very important and key factor that you should have a confidence in oneself that you can do things. And second is never give up attitude. Like there may be some hurdles may come across, so don't go back or look back. It is important to not to give up at any point and continue, so that one point you will succeed. Third thing that I wanted to highlight is be organized. So have clarity on what are your goals, what you wanted to do in your life and as a career, as a profession. So have those goals clearly set and plan things, prioritize in your life what is important, how to plan things and how to execute it. So go behind your dream, go behind and chase it. So you can overcome these challenges. So, and whoever is looking up for a leadership role, I would suggest they have to first talk to their manager and be open for your feedback. It can be critical feedback or it can be improvement suggestions. Make a list of it and work on it and come up with some action items, what you have to do, demonstrate. At the end of the day, it is the result that decides how whether leader, as a leader, you are successful or not. It is again, when you are leader, when you work with the team, you will know, when you work as a team, you will know what are your team's strength and what are your team's weakness, so that you can plan accordingly and guide them wherever it is needed. So these are my thoughts or views for this question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ladies. This was very inspiring and very helpful. I'm sure everybody will agree to it. The next question that we have in our discussion is, you have had a range of experiences in your career, in your life. Do you feel like you've been encouraged by both male and female advocates? And do you think there's a difference in the mentorship that you've received from them? If so, how?
Yeah, I would agree, Akansha, that there is a difference. You know, I think throughout this conversation, I've heard exactly the stories that I've experienced from everybody here. You know, when I first started out in business, it was, you know, as a secretary. And, you know, it's a typical, you know, male role, female role, you know, women as secretaries and men are the bosses and what have you. And I had some really good experiences and had some really bad ones. When I left that career and went into nursing, you know, I kept on hearing, oh, you know, nurses eat their young and what have you, and be prepared, the women are the worst. And, you know, I mean, KK, you can relate to this too, right? You know, nurses eat their young, you got to prove yourself, you know, they had it bad, so they're going to make it bad for you. So I've had really both been disappointed and been encouraged by everybody that I've worked with in the past. You know, I've been unfortunately in business where I've worked with some people who've been really unethical, unprincipled, rude, bullies. And, you know, as KK said, you know, you can't take that into you. They are who they are, but they're not my role models. They're not my mentors. And so, but I have taken lessons from them. Don't be like that. You know, those are not the right people. And they haven't succeeded. Eventually, you know, karma has, you may not see it, but it comes around. And, you know, they get what is owed to them by being, you know, unethical or rude. But I've taken lessons from both types of folks to really determine who I wanted to be, how I wanted to be in my career. You know, I've seen both jealousy and, you know, poisonous turf battles, and, you know, that's just not for me, you know. So you have to decide, I think, really early, you know, what your principles are and stick to them. I remember one job I took, you know, not that too distant past, where I came in and, you know, the men were just wonderful. I was, you know, greeted well. The leaders in the organization who were women, you know, greeted me well. But my team, oh my gosh, they were the most awful people. It was like from day one, it was like, let's see what we can do to like trip her up. And, you know, I finally was able to get to the truth. And, you know, I said, you know, I'm not having this, but you've got to pick what is the right way to get through that and get over that hump. And my way was to face it directly. You know, I took like the man's role at that point, which I don't normally do, but it was very direct, very decisive. And I called everybody into the room and I put it out there. I said, gosh, I'm really hearing that you all are in fear of your jobs, that you are afraid that I've been brought into the organization to fire you all, that you all better be on your toes. You know, is that what you're hearing? And I saw a couple of nods and I said, well, you know, what you see is what you get with me. And honestly, I am not that Machiavellian that I have like 50 people in the wings waiting just to take your jobs. So please, if you have any concerns, any questions, you come to me, you talk to me. But I am not here to do this, I'm not here to do that, and I'm not here to do XYZ that is rumor. You hear a rumor, come to me and talk to me about it. So there are times when you have to be really decisive and direct, but there are other times when you don't. So in terms of you know, people who are grabby for power and those folks are self-destructive, and I vowed not to really become like that. You know, you have to be confident. You have to, you know, certainly contain what's in your scope, but you have, you know, be nice about it, be collaborative. And I think that's one of the things that I enjoy working with my counterparts here. I think we're all in it for the same reason. We all want to do a good job. We all want to be collaborative. And, you know, that's, you choose to do that. I've had really selfless bosses, which have been really great. And I've worked with those. They show such grace. And I want to be like that. Some of my male mentors have really been surprisingly the most supportive and challenging me to do better. But in what Tricia was saying, in that mode of, you know, directness and, you know, I think there still is there's that language between men and women. Men like to be the fixers. Women want to be heard. They don't want to be fixed. They have their own ideas. So, you know, mentors are folks for me who want to listen and offer advice, but don't tell you what to do. Let you figure it out for yourself. And that goes back to my first mentor, who told me to research things myself and decide what is real for you. So, and again, it's not always mentors that are in a higher leadership position. I've had looked to other people who haven't realized they've been a mentor to me. You know, some of the best people when I worked in the hospital were the housekeepers. You know, they were the silent people that went and just did their job, but man, they saw everything. And, you know, they could teach you a lot. So I've had both men and women who have been highly encouraging, and then those who are not. So you just have to surround yourself, I think, with the people that best fit you and how you want to be. And in turn, being a mentor or being a supporter behind the scenes, somebody else who's coming up through the ranks. One of my best highlights was when one of my staff took a job in another organization where she was on the fast track. And, you know, I could have been jealous, but I was just so proud of her for succeeding. And, you know, still today, we're great friends. But she used to work for me, you know, a long time ago. And, you know, she's just made her own path, and it's just been very rewarding to see that.
Thank you, Sandra. Couldn't agree more with your thoughts. Tricia, would you please share your inputs on this as well?
Sure. Yeah, I've had a range of experiences too. I think that's going to be the common theme to this question. As I reflect on this, I kind of see the the mentorship that I've received in 3 buckets, I guess, maybe because I've done a lot of different things in my career so far. So obviously, I'm a nurse and started out working in the nursing home. I worked for 5 years in a locked psych unit. I did floor nursing as well, and did a lot of different things. And so that's sort of one phase of just, getting into nursing and getting access to great nursing leaders. And my nursing advocacy and the leaders that were in that phase were very, very great. They were very helpful, very nurturing, helped me build confidence, encouraged me to advance my career, to specialize and get certifications. Were not hesitant to have me shadow them, take me under their wing. So the nurses eat their young. I was told that too. And I'm just so fortunate I didn't have that experience. It was just really great. And I got to do a lot of different things. So I'm very fortunate for that. When I moved from bedside nursing and went into quality and risk and compliance, that was a different phase for me of mentorship and advocacy, both male and female. By nature, that work sees the ugly side of healthcare. It sees the medical errors. It sees the negligence, the lawsuits, the wrongful deaths, all the different things that are on the dark side of the moon is the way I used to describe it. So I was usually the one leading those efforts as being the leader in quality and safety, sort of having to set that example for what ethical decision-making looked like and what fairness looked like, and guiding the team to take actions that were not punitive, but were just. And so a lot of the mentorship I received during that phase was informal. Maybe those people didn't know they were mentoring me, but the folks that stuck out to me in that phase were the ones who dealt with the crisis, who dealt with the situations that were very unfortunate, but they dealt with it in grace. They dealt with it with ethics, and they did the right thing, and they stood up and they took accountability and they took ownership, and they wanted to fix root causes and not cover up things. And there weren't a lot of people in that phase of my career that did that, but the ones that did, I really kind of put them on a pedestal and wanted to be more like them. And I always thought if I were ever in that situation, that's how I would want to react to it. That's stand up. That's right on. So there's that phase. And then finally, so I left that, and then I went into consulting, management consulting, and this was the most male dominated field I had ever worked in. There was 2 or 3 women. I was the only clinician, so it was all men. And so the mentorship there took on a very different form. Like I mentioned earlier, it was very direct, very decisive, very straightforward. And quite honestly, it's some of the best mentorship I've received in my career thus far. It's very brutally honest, cutthroat, very to the point of what needed to change and where I went wrong and what I wasn't doing. And I wasn't used to receiving feedback like that, but it was so helpful. It was almost what I needed to improve or fill gaps that I didn't see for myself, little blind spots. One moment sticks out in particular. It was, we were working on a big project for a safety net hospital out in Indiana, putting together a big presentation for the next day. I was in a hotel room. I stayed up all night trying to put the finishing touches on my presentation. We were going to pitch a 5-year strategic plan for the organization. So it was big. It was a big project. And it was one of the first I was on. And I bring forward my work to the project executive. And he basically told me it was terrible. He said, we can't use this. This isn't what we're looking for. Try again. Maybe next time it'll work out. It was just really brutal. And I was crushed. I mean, I was just, wow, I've never received this type of feedback. But boy, did it light a fire in me. I didn't let that get me down for 1 second. And I really took it back to the drawing board and figured out what I missed, how I could be better. And I picked up the pieces and moved on. So I don't think I would have gotten that sort of direct feedback from a nursing mentor earlier in my career. But I got it in this phase, and it happened to be a man, and we're really good friends now, and things move on. But I think, acknowledging that in different environments and in different work settings, you're going to get different kinds of mentorship, and just soak it up, just be a sponge and take it for what it is, and know that it's going to touch on a need that you have in that point of your career that you may or may not be aware of. And so, that's been my experience, and I cherish each one that I've been in.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you so much. Kathy, over to you.
Yes, thank you. So I think yes, I've had a range of experiences by both male and female advocates. I'm not so sure that there's a difference in mentorship based on gender. I think there is a difference of mentorship based on what career bubble you're in. So for some of us, we historically came out of nursing careers. To me, I'll be blunt. I know, shocker, right? People went into nursing careers to either A, marry a doctor, or B, be a nurse. It was the caring component. We as nurses are intrinsically built to care for people, to soothe the hurts, to bring people to wellness, to take care of people. That's how we're built. And then you go to nursing school where you learn everything is black and white. There is no gray. You either do it this way, and if you don't, you can potentially kill somebody. So we're very black and white, just is the way it is. We work by policy. We work by, there's only one way to do it, and that's the way you do it, because there are repercussions if you don't. So what I found over time was that depending on what leg of my career I was in, the mentorship that I received aligned up to that career, not so much men or women, because same thing with doctors, right? Doctors become doctors for many reasons, but I'll probably label it, and it's the same bucket, right? Is I'm a doctor because I want to be a doctor, I want the prestige, I want the money, or I'm a doctor because I need to heal people. It's a calling. So I think medicine, in any hat you wear, just not nursing or physician, in any medical hat you wear, it is a calling. And so part of that mentorship then becomes part of that calling. And I think that's what became interesting to me as I moved out of the medical career and I moved over to the business side. The business side's a little bit harsher and it's a little bit different. So when I look at who were my advocates, to me, an advocate wasn't my friend, and it may not have even been my boss. My advocate is somebody who can be objective about me, because that's where the truth lies, is in the being able to give you constructive criticism and me being able to be receptive to that without feelings being involved. So there has to be a trust component to who is your advocate and who is your mentor and the feedback that they're giving back to you. Now, have I had bad mentorship? Oh, absolutely. And it's this, to me, in my gut. I've always trusted my gut. I think it got evolved clinically when I worked in the ER. I was charge nurse in a very busy ER, and I had to make pretty quick life or death assessments and situations and make decisions. And so I always trusted my gut. I, in any step of life, have this sort of cycle I go through of assessment, pulling in the data, shifting it through and coming to a decision. And so part of trusting my gut with the feedback that was coming back to me, because depending on who it came from, I think some of it was skewed. Some of it was skewed to sink me, where others was given to me to elevate me, to push me up that ladder, both professionally and personally. And so I was lucky that most of my mentorship came both from male and female, and probably 98% of it was to make me successful, to grow me professionally. And obviously, when you grow professionally, you grow personally. It's like I said, you can't split yourself. You're a whole person, and there are components to you. And so everything that was done to help me objectively helped me. There are times where I always take feedback, but I always look at who is the person giving me that feedback, and are there motives, right? What are their motives to their feedback? To better me or to harm me? And only I can tell that. Just based on history, right? I mean, I think we give everybody a chance who we come across, right? We come across someone and we trust them. And it isn't until over time that you begin to peel off the layers and you realize these people aren't trustworthy. And so you adapt to that feedback that you're given. But I don't, at least for me personally, I do not feel that mentorship changed for me based on male or female, but it definitely changed in that career setting that I was at and the type of person that I was dealing with. But again, I'm kind of my glass is half full person. I always try to find the positive within that negative. It's the only way to keep you sane and happy. I've always gone into my job or my career that I needed to find joy in it, that I needed to bring value into it, that I needed to jump up in the morning and can't wait to get to work. It just wasn't a paycheck. And I never saw my job as a paycheck. I always saw it more. So I have to find some feedback back to me that's positive in my careers. And there have been times where I had to make the decision that my job was not good for me. That it just was too negative. It was the people I was dealing with was impacting me. And I was lucky that I had an extremely supportive husband who would say to me, you don't need that, just quit. And so he was great. So, you know, I know his feedback or his advocate was probably a little skewed to my side. But it was having that support network to be able to know when it's time to move on, because sometimes it just is. Sometimes it's time to move on. And some people are afraid of the unknown. I actually embrace the unknown because, again, it's that growth factor of today's a new day. What are you going to throw at me today? And that's what makes it fun and exciting. And I'll either step up to the plate and hit a home run, or maybe I'll strike out, but I'll learn how to swing better. So that's kind of my feelings about mentorship. I try to keep away from the gender label, just because I want to be fair to people. People are people. They've been created and evolved by their past, just like I have. And so to me, mentorship is really about someone being able to be objective, because that's the critical component, that the feedback that you get is objective and for the betterment of you.
Thank you, Kathy. That was very well put. Suma, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I have I have not got a chance to work under woman leader or woman manager, but I was always reporting to male manager or a man. But my experience wise, everybody has a different way of mentorship. Some comes as a straight direct point, as some of the feedbacks that we heard. So it is always helps us to improve our career and improve or learn something. So I do believe, like on another aspect, when I do work with some of the female leaders where I had learned a lot. So I do feel like when you work with the female advocate, it comes as a complete package. It is not just the result oriented or task oriented, or it has a more wider dimension to it, where we look up and where we follow certain things. We can connect and we can try to balance certain things also when it comes to getting feedback or guidance from a female advocate. but on a overall note, I did not feel anything difference when it comes to the mentorship between the different gender. But it is by person, it is different. So everyone has a different way of mentorship, a direct or passing a critical feedback, or talking the direct point versus how to express it or how to give the feedback. But overall, I felt it has helped me in coming up most of my shortcomings and improve on different areas.
Thank you so much, Suma, and thank you so much, ladies. Again, it was very inspiring, very well put. I know we are a little over our time, so please hang on with it. This year's Women's Day theme is Choose to Challenge, and as our initiative, we reached out to some of our, all of our women employees in ZeOmega, and we asked them to share the quotes that they are inspired with. A copy of the same would be shared with all the ZeOmega employees. A booklet of all the quotes and their pictures will be shared with all the ZeOmega women employees. Moving forward, we also went ahead and asked our team to share if they have any questions that they would like to ask our panelists. We're calling them connection questions from ZeOmega Women. So I would request our panelists are open to answer whoever feels like answering them. The first question that came across was, can you describe an event from your life when you faced a difficult ordeal professionally or personally, and how that fundamentally impacted you in a negative way? Can you share what the coping strategies you involved, and what positive did the challenge event lead over time? How did it come out as a positive thing in your life? I'll keep this open to anybody who feels like answering, all our four panelists.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I have one event that's kind of, it's embarrassing, but it's not. It taught me a lot. When I was in the Army, as you can tell, I'm not the most physically fit woman. But one of the things in the Army is you have to pass a PT test. So I'm proud of the fact in my 4 years in the Army, I didn't pass the PT test one time, but I was an awesome nurse. But, one of the things that really impacted me negatively was, when it was a 4-year tour, and at the 3-year and 9-month mark, administration in the military came in and said, oh, you know what, we're going through a new cycle now, and we're kind of getting rid of people who, don't meet our standards. So they were, getting ready to, push me out of the Army, which was fine. I was ready to go. And I was ready to go in 3 months, but they wanted to do it sooner. One of the things they did was still an honorable discharge, but they said it was because of substandard performance of duty. And to them, it meant you just didn't pass your PT test. But to me as a nurse, that meant I was an awful nurse. I was so angry, and I was so mad that they could take my, and I got perfect scores on all of my reviews and things like that. So I was like really, really pissed. And so, I was not going to stand for that. And, I took it all the way to the general of the base. And, they obviously didn't want to hear, but I involved a judge advocate general, which is the Army's version of the attorneys. But I was just so angry for like 3 months. It was horrible. It was very negative. It totally consumed my life. And the way I coped with that was I was just determined that they were not going to ruin my nursing career going forward for those few words on a discharge paperwork. And so I eventually did win and got them to write a letter signed by the general that actually stated what substandard performance of duty was in terms of me and my nursing career. And so, I think it taught me that, get fired up. You don't have to accept what organizations are going to throw at you. It didn't really affect me going forward because nobody ever really asked, but it was the principle of the thing. So I think that you just have to learn to, push your way through, stand up for yourself. Don't let anybody else tell you that you're not good enough. And if you think something is really, really wrong, then do something about it. Don't just sit there and, let it go. If it means that much to you, really push it. So anyway, that's my embarrassing story, but I learned a lot from it.
Thank you so much, Sandra. The next question, again, a very good question that came up from our ZeOmega women employees is, when a group of people are discussing an issue, sometimes the conversation gets heated and voices are raised. How do you manage your voice heard in such an atmosphere so that you can appropriately present your opinions and ideas and be heard?
I have a little bit to say about this, and I think it's because I used to be a psych nurse, and that sounds terrible, but when you're in psych nursing, you're trained to de-escalate situations in the way that you present your body language, the way that you hold the tone and cadence of your language. And Kathy probably has some of those examples too, running in ER, because psych people have to come through the ER first. So I think, when voices raise, if you can intentionally lower yours, that's one tactic, just very simple. Has nothing to do with correcting the behavior, but just lowers the overall tone. So don't respond in the way that you're being responded to, just intentionally lower that voice. Body language really matters in those situations. So the environment is probably tense, and so showing the opposite with your body language can be helpful, sort of putting your hands out in front of you and showing some openness and transparency rather than doing this or pounding on the desk, but kind of come out and be calm and collective. So those are just sort of psychological tactics in the way you communicate in those situations. But overall, there have been times when I've had to walk away from conversations because I just simply refuse to subject myself to this sort of treatment, being yelled and screamed at. So I think you have to have the courage to do that. And then absolutely revisit it so that you can be heard and seen and acknowledged. Don't let that become something that's off the record because you had to walk away from it. But don't feel that you have to stay and talk that person down or soothe them or correct the way that they feel. That's not your job. And, you're an equal to that person. And if you're in a situation where you're being disrespected or screamed at or called names or cursed at, feel free to walk away from that because that's not part of the job description. And we all have to have that integrity and courage within ourselves to stand up for our own well-being, because those sorts of conversations, they stick with you. You lay down at night and that's the conversation that's going to replay in your head. They're emotionally disturbing. And so I think if no one's going to protect your own emotions and well-being, no one's going to do that but you. And so I guess that's my 2 cents there. It sounds like I've been through a lot of those types of conversations to have all this advice, but it will happen. And the higher up you go in leadership, the more often it will happen. And when the door is closed, the door is closed. And so sometimes you might be in a room with the door closed with very few people, and things can get even more tense because you're somewhat off record in those situations. So just a few tactics there. It will happen. It's not if, it's when.
Right. Right. I actually want to answer 1 and 2 in one full shot. So I've had both professional and personally horrible things happen. And from that, 2 things either occur. You either, for a second, and it is okay, you are the victim. You have been hurt, horribly hurt. And so what I learned was, after I emotionally went through the hurt, I came out the other side, standing up stronger and harder, saying, I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not going to be a victim. I am going to stand for myself. I have that right as a human being. So when you get into conversations, and I think some of it's difficult now that we're all on Zoom, right? Because we're not in a room, passions run high, everybody's screaming and yelling, and you're just trying to get your voice heard. 1, your voice should be heard. That is owed to you within the organization, that you are a voice and it needs to listen. I think what becomes challenging is some of its personality, right? Some of us are louder. I tend to use the phrase passionate. People who know me know I'm very passionate about what I do. That could be interpreted as very loud. I am. So it's being cognizant of who you are as a personality. Some people aren't comfortable being loud or being aggressive or being passionate. And I think that's where we see some gender discord sometimes. But ultimately, bullying is not acceptable anywhere, personally, in the workplace, anywhere. I don't like bullies. I started fighting bullies when I was in kindergarten. The nuns used to call my mom at home and say, oh, Kathy, but I, even as a child, could identify a bully and knew it was wrong. And I would stand in front of that person who they were bullying, because in my mind, that just wasn't right. You don't let bullies bully. So in the professional world, that's difficult, right? Because it depends who's the bully and who's being aggressive. Sometimes it's better to have a one-to-one conversation with that person after. So you pick up the phone and you say, you know, you kind of really made me feel horrible. You actually, you know, made me uncomfortable by what you said. And I think it's addressing those issues head on. Sometimes you're so shocked by it that you can't even react to it, and you react to it after it's happened. It's critical, based on what happened, that you stand up for yourself after the fact. And it's, to me, a one-to-one conversation, depending on what happened. But you've got to go to the other person and really share what happened, really put you in an uncomfortable position and why. Because sometimes we don't know that, right? That intent versus perception. That's always where communication goes wrong. And so sometimes people don't even realize that they're really giving negative vibes or negative messages until somebody calls them on it. It's your job as that person to do it in a professional, objective way. But you can only share your side of it, how you felt in that moment when they did what they did. And then obviously, if it's happening within the organization, there's an escalation. You reach out to your manager, you reach out to HR. There are always people who are there to support, to listen, to advocate, and to mentor.
Amazing. Thank you so much, ladies. This was a very enlightening and a very empowering conversation that we have had. Now, this marks the end of our presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you. A special thank you to our panelists, our HR team for putting this together, and Amanda for helping us put this presentation together. Hope everyone has a great day. Have a good evening and a good day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
I just wanted to add one thing, that if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to our panelists, or you can reach out to our HR team and we will read out your questions and get answers to them. A copy of this presentation and the link to the recording will be posted on Yammer, as well as this recording will also go on LinkedIn. So Congratulations, everyone. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you.